Hey sports fans, welcome to the Cavalier Sports Report. I'm your host, Shawn Simpson, and joining me in studio today from 610 Sports, the co-host of Fesco in the Morning, Mr. Josh Klingler.
Hey, how are you doing today, Shawn?
Doing good. So Josh, you are probably one of the most familiar voices in sports broadcasting.
Huh, all right.
Well, I do have a tendency to overstate, but I don't think I am in this case because, well, let's see, I could run down the litany of things that I've memorized about what you do, but besides being Bob Fesco's straight man, basically, and the guy who actually has information on the show.
You know your role. That's always important, right?
Yeah.
Keep somebody in line.
So what else do you do?
What else do I do, huh? Yeah. Well, like many people in the media, I have about 3 or 4 jobs, which is usually kind of a par for the course a little bit. But in addition to working at 610, I do some anchoring on our sister station, 98.1 FM KMBZ, do the sportscast in the morning there. And then I'm part of the Jayhawk radio network, and with football and basketball, sideline reporting for football, and pre and post game for basketball, and cover the Kansas Jayhawks for the Jayhawk network too. So
yeah, so anybody listening to Kansas sports is pretty well going to be familiar with.
Yeah, I guess I do some women's basketball too on the television side. So you know. Yeah.
So Josh, at what point in your early life or your career did you decide that you wanted to get into radio and broadcasting?
I think it was my sophomore year in college. I was a business major. I was going to go get my MBA. I was in accounting.
Wow, this is getting better by the minute.
Yeah, it was really dark. My parents would have been so much happier had I stayed in accounting, but wasn't doing badly. I just didn't really enjoy it. I always had a thing for numbers. I always had a thing for sports, and then kind of stumbled into the campus radio station, similar to something here where you, hey, why don't you go try this? Found a friend who was doing it and found out I really enjoyed it. Ended up switching majors. About halfway through college. Still got my business minor, which I've never been able to put to any kind of use. Can't balance my checkbook. Not real great with the investments. But I have that business minor.
You're great with the stats.
Yeah, that's right. It helps with stats. I think that was part of it too, where I thought statistics course in college was sports stats. And you signed up and you got in and you're like, wait a minute, this has nothing to do with sports. But about midway through college, I decided that this is what I wanted to do. Just got involved with the campus radio station. Went and did just about everything. Tried to learn everything, find something you like, and kind of stumbled into staying really, for the most part, for me in radio. I've just always enjoyed radio the most part. Dabbled a little bit in television, not a lot in film, but did them all in college. And kind of, I think that's what college is about, right? Trying to find out what your strengths are, what you like to do, and then just kind of jumped in full bore.
So prior to your role that you have now with all these different jobs and being so prolific, I mean, you turn out a ton of content, obviously. What were you doing? What led you up to 610?
Right. Well, let me back up a bit. Once I discovered I was going into that I enjoyed broadcasting, my mother reminded me that apparently when I was a kid, I would get out at that time a tape recorder. Some people watching might have to go Google what a tape recorder looks like, and I would imitate ball games. And at the time, I grew up in Iowa, and Harry Carey was calling the Cubs games.
Oh, wow.
Right?
Yeah.
And so, not too many people probably say, "Well, Harry Carey's my broadcasting style," because there's nobody that can be like Harry Carey. But apparently, I would call games into my tape recorder. And I have a younger sister, and apparently, I would get her. I don't remember this at all. I would get her to act out, and we'd act out commercials. So I'd do a fake inning of a broadcast, right? And then we'd go to commercial break. And then I'd have my sister act out commercials, which was very weird. I didn't remember this. My mother said, no, you used to do this all the time.
Like radio theater?
And so apparently when I was much, much younger, I was going to get into this, and I guess I just went a different direction. I finally got out of sports when I moved to Kansas City. That was my big break, I guess, because I decided I really didn't want to do news anymore. I thought I was okay at it, but it wasn't my passion.
Right.
And so once I moved here, I was full-time sports, which was great, and that was in 2003 when a station launched called 610 Sports that was a country station at the time, which was kind of funny because I'd come from a couple of country stations before that. I was like, okay, another country station, and we flipped to sports and kind of, in fact, worked my way up through 610 as well. When I first started, I'd done a bunch of sports in Illinois, but I came on actually as a producer at night. The station had launched, and at the time, had some really big personalities, many known in the Kansas City area, and I kind of got in late and said, hey, I want to come to Kansas City. I've always been a Royals fan, always been a Chiefs fan. I have family that lives here. I want to be here. And the boss at the time said, well, I'm not sure I have something for you, but we could probably work something out. I have something that's probably a little bit below what you're doing now, but if you want to come do it, come do it. I ended up coming here as a nighttime producer for our night show at the time. Eventually became the anchor in the afternoons in addition to going on at night. We moved to mornings. Eventually became the co-host of mornings, and just kind of taking one step at a time. And then similar to a little bit really when I was back in Iowa, kind of found my way into the Kansas network just by being somebody that's interested in college sports, someone that could do a lot of different things and provide them with some content and another voice that they hadn't had on the broadcast before, and kind of got my way in there, and I've been there for now 10 years working with the network there. So, I mean, it's kind of making the most of your opportunities, working your way up. Some people do it different ways. If it were me probably today, I might take a different route than I did then, but you kind of end up where you're supposed to be, and I think I was supposed to be in Kansas City kind of the entire time, and I think I was probably supposed to be in broadcasting and not an accountant.
Well,
doing my taxes somewhere.
Clearly, I think you'd be really fun to do taxes with, because it'd be at least be fun
well,
to listen to.
I have to keep a lot of receipts.
Well,
I have to keep the 4 jobs straight, and sometimes filing the taxes is a little bit difficult in that regard. So,
you're well prepared.
Yeah, I mean, I think for people that they're trying to get into the business, I think some good advice is be flexible. I know your background is kind of that same way too. You do a number of different things, and I think that can be beneficial. And then hone in on what you want to do, and I could probably go for a number of careers and jobs. Right? Be flexible. Be willing to work. Be willing to work your way up, and then once you know what you want to do, go for it.
Sure. Now, when I was younger, my previous career working in the music industry, people used to always ask, "What's it like being around a superstar? What's it like being around someone really famous?" And I was never really terribly enamored with the artists that I was working with, because it was a professional relationship. But I was always kind of enamored with the athletes. Whenever in Nashville, when one of the Tennessee Titans would come into the studio, you would. Because
rock stars always want to be athletes. Athletes always want to be rock stars.
Yeah, but from your perspective, what's it like being around and getting to talk to these athletes and coaches that are especially with the Royals being world champions now? What's it like to go to those people, ask them questions, and work to get answers from them?
I mean, it depends on the person. It depends on the team, and there's an athlete stereotype too. But at the end of the day, they are regular people. They're just in a different tax bracket than most of us are, an immensely larger tax bracket than most of us are. I mean, I think I've always just tried to, I think just be professional. You can't be a fan. I mean, you can be a fan. I'm a fan of teams. I mean, I grew up a fan of the Royals, but in a professional sense, you're not. But I think just remembering that they're regular people too, and they have they go home at night and they have families to worry about, and they're making a check maybe a different way than you and I are, but they are regular people for the most part. I mean, there's plenty of athletes you run into that you're like, man, I'd really never like to run into this person ever again. And there's a whole bunch of them that are just completely normal guys. I tend to gravitate more towards the normal guys, the ones that are maybe a little bit, the TMZ crowd or whatever. I'd be. But there's plenty of athletes that are normal kind of everyday guys that are pretty fun to be around.
Now, I'll put you on the spot here, and you don't have to name names, but what is one of the worst experiences you've had that made you think, man, I really don't want to talk to this guy again?
Well, yeah, I probably won't name names. There's one here that's here in Kansas City that, as a fan from afar, I really liked, and once I got to know them, I wasn't as much of a fan. I think it kind of clouds it a little bit too. I think it'd be much easier to work maybe somewhere where you weren't a fan of the team previously. In our business, if I was working in Chicago or was working in Los Angeles and I was not a fan of those teams, I think it'd be a little bit easier at times because you can kind of separate it a little bit. I mean, the Royals for us has been a little bit difficult because I grew up a Royals fan. I mean, I went to the World Series in 1980. My aunt at the time worked for the Royals. I mean, I remember '85 vividly. I was a fan then, so to see them then win it now, I mean, it's kind of hard to separate.
You got an emotional connection.
You're supposed to be a pro, but I was about crying on the field when they won, you know, and
Sure.
and so I think that kind of leads into it too. I mean, there's been more good than bad in terms of athletes. I think you know, sometimes different leagues are different too. Like right now, the NFL doesn't want to talk to anybody, and so the Chiefs aren't as easy to get to know, coaches, players, everything, as much as the Royals are right now. The Royals are very receptive. We see them out in the community all the time. People seem to kind of attach to that team. Like everybody feels like they know Eric Hosmer now, right, or Alex Gordon or what have you. And you know, I think that the Royals have kind of lent themselves to being a little more open than say the Chiefs are at this point. But the NFL has also kind of closed the ranks. But you know, there's good and bad with everything. I mean, there are people. So you can't group them as athletes are this, or football players are this, baseball players are this. Everybody's in it an individual, and they're good and bad to deal with and get along with and not get along with.
Right. Now, just from an insider's perspective, one of the things that I always love to hear from anybody who's inside the business that has been there for a long time is you've seen
code for old?
Yes.
Okay.
Sorry.
That's fine.
It's kind of like non-traditional student.
Fesco does that to me
I
every
am.
morning. Yeah.
You shouldn't let him do that. What I'm wondering is, you've seen the business
That's what they call
evolve.
non-traditional students old? Is that what? That's
the code for non-traditional
Okay,
students
cool.
is old.
Gotcha.
That's what
Just
I am
wanted to
as a
get the lingo.
non-traditional student.
Yeah.
So we're good.
Okay.
So you've been in the business for a long time. I'm a non-traditional student. Old guys unite.
There you go.
All right. So
Old guys probably shouldn't fist bump either, but that's fine.
it makes us feel younger.
Yeah, okay. Gotcha.
So as we have moved from a business of television spots and radio hits and you know, field recorder interviews and this and that, to now we have this instant access. We have, you know, Twitter and Facebook and everything. The business has changed significantly. I want to ask you, you know, to go through exactly how the business has changed, but what are you seeing as where it's going to go? For instance, this access to the athletes is completely different with social media. What do you think we're going to be looking at in 5 years?
Oh, good grief. I don't know. It's an interesting question. Even within the last 5 years, even since I've been at 610, which again is now 13 years, last 5 years have changed so fast. It's hard to tell. I think one of the things that has changed already is teams, leagues have taken kind of their things in-house, and they control the message a little bit more. They kind of produce their own product, as it were. And athletes are in the same boat. I mean, they can kind of control what their image is, what they decide to share on social media. You get to know them maybe more through social media than you do with probably regular interaction. Not that that's different than the general public, right? Mm-hmm. We all interact differently now, probably with the use of social media and technology. So athletics is kind of in that same vein. So I think we'll probably see a little bit more of that, where they produce, I guess, for lack of a better word, their own message, their own news. You know, you see team websites now that are very, very active in covering games and sports, and you got to be careful with that, because that is a really kind of insider message, and maybe not held in check like traditional media might. So that's probably the biggest. Obviously, technology will continue to improve, and just the use of a cell phone now to shoot video and to shoot audio makes everybody have the ability to do some of the things in media that we had very expensive equipment for in the past, but can make it easier and quicker to disseminate to people. So some of it's good, some of it's bad, but it's definitely different. I mean, it's vastly different than even just a few years ago.
Yeah. Well, Josh, I can't thank you enough for taking the time out of what's already been a long day for you, up at 3 o'clock in the morning and on the air, and now you're here with us, so we really appreciate it.
What time is it? What day is it?
I'm not even sure.
Do I need to be anywhere after this? I don't know. That's fine. That's fine. That's part of the deal too. Find as many jobs as possible and never let them go. No, I think that's part of it. You know, be willing to work hard, have some fun. It's a great field to be in, no doubt about it. We have a ton of fun and get to go cover a lot of cool stuff and meet a lot of neat people, and you know, hey, sleeps for later.
All right. Well, we certainly appreciate you being here, and we always appreciate hearing you on the air. It's always great. So thank you so much.
You bet.
All right. So that's going to do it for today. On behalf of the whole JCAV team, I'd like to thank Josh Klingler for coming out. I'm Shawn Simpson, and this has been your Cavalier Sports Report.